At the Mitsugoshi Deluxe Hotel in Oriana, the news arrived like a thunderclap. Epsilon, a woman of dramatic flair and even more dramatic proportions, was struck by the revelation. With a mighty bam, she abandoned all pretense of subtlety, her body instinctively contorting into a pose of maximum seductive potential as she cried out a single, earth-shattering question. Lord Shadow had returned? Her ever-composed superior, Alpha, calmly held her teacup, a picture of elven grace amidst the outburst. She gently admonished her subordinate to calm herself. It was always a certainty that their lord would come back. Alpha continued her thought, walking away from the still-posing Epsilon. Their master was no simpleton to leap into a situation like the Black Rose incident without a plan. He had simply accomplished what he set out to do, and now he was back. It was as simple as that. Just then, the door opened with a clack. Beta entered, delivering an update. Lord Shadow had returned to Midgar Academy for the time being. Epsilon, striking yet another pose, demanded to know his location. Beta, unfazed, explained that he had things to do there, and had instructed them to deal with the incident's aftermath. As she spoke, her own assets bounced with a comical boing. Epsilon's frantic energy finally short-circuited into confusion. She stared at Beta, her mind finally processing the other woman's attire and asking what exactly she was wearing. Beta cheerfully explained that when she told their resident genius Ita about the research team from her trip, Ita had wanted to see the battlesuit worn by a person named Tanaka San in Japan. Alpha processed this new, profound information with the seriousness it deserved. This Tanaka San, she concluded, must have been a master of espionage. The debriefing continued. Alpha stated that Ita was currently researching the Deegeecam and Konputa that Beta had brought back. Meanwhile, the elusive Zeta was at Lord Shadow's side. The mention of Zeta caught Alpha's attention. She was surprised, as Zeta had not reported her return. Though capable, she was notoriously bad at checking in. Alpha then inquired about the other thing Beta had brought back. Beta reported that the subject's magical and physical states were stable, and that she would personally look after her for the foreseeable future. The girl should be waking up any day now. In a quiet, unfamiliar room, Akane Nishino's eyes fluttered open. She looked around, confused, wondering where she was.
This was definitely not the university. A book on the table beside her was filled with a text she didn't recognize. Her mind raced back to the final moments back there. What she saw. A flash of a determined, familiar face. It had to be him. Akane was sure she wasn't mistaken. It was you, Minoru-kun, wasn't it? He was alive. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized he hadn't changed at all. Gripping the sheets, she sobbed with regret and a newfound resolve. She was so sorry. She wanted to help more people than she had killed. She prayed, asking Minoru-kun to wait for her. She would atone for her sins, no matter what it took. Back at Midgar Academy, Cid Kagenou was being greeted by his friends, Hyoro and Jaga, with less reverence and more righteous fury. They demanded to know where he'd been all winter break. Hyoro was particularly incensed, reminding Cid of his promise to work on a fishing boat to help pay off Hyoro's debt. Jaga was equally aggrieved, recalling their plan to go hit on Lady Mitsugoshi together. Cid, the perfect background character, gave a perfectly bland excuse. He took a trip out of the kingdom. This sent his indebted friends into a frenzy, demanding he give them the money instead and introduce them to any ladies he met. They pressed him for details. Where exactly was out of the kingdom? Was it Oriana? Cid, clueless as ever, wondered what was wrong with Oriana. His friends were aghast. Hadn't he seen the news? Lady Rose, who had been missing, had suddenly reappeared and become the tyrant of Oriana. Cid was stunned. Rose? A tyrant? His friends confirmed the unbelievable news. It wasn't the king who took over, but her. The gossip was juicy. They say Lady Rose summoned a demon at her wedding, massacred all the other heirs, and seized control of the kingdom by force. There were even rumors she killed her own father at the Bushin festival. Cid, hearing all this, could only think that you really can't judge a book by its cover. A girl with blonde hair and twin tails stood nearby, her mind reeling. "Rose, is this true? Why didn't you tell me?" The girl's despair twisted into manic admiration. "You weren't the queen of light. You were the queen of darkness she always admired. One who hides in the shadows to hunt shadows." Cid, meanwhile, was delighted. He felt a certain kinship with monarchs who rise to power without compromising their beliefs. His friends added that Rose was also rumored to be connected to an organization called Shadow Garden. Hyoro frantically shushed Jaga, warning him that Shadow Garden could make him disappear. Cid, playing his part, asked who could possibly do that. The Shadow Garden. It was a real fear. Apparently, 4 students who had been searching for the organization had gone missing over the winter break. Jaga laughed it off, suggesting they probably just failed their classes and ran home. Hyoro, however, was clearly terrified. The topic shifted to a more immediate threat, the final exams. His friends asked Cid how his studying was going. A trio of smirks. Hyoro, Jaga, and Cid all confidently declared they'd start getting serious tomorrow, each feigning that they'd already accumulated a vast store of knowledge. They cheered, certain the 3 of them would pass with little trouble. Internally, Cid was screaming. He had completely forgotten about the test. Oh, man! He'd been so engrossed in researching new moves for his Eminence in Shadow persona that the test had totally slipped his mind. This was a crisis. A normal mob character couldn't have a score that was too high or too low. To achieve that perfect mediocrity, he actually had to study. He'd been playing around too much. There was no other choice. He would have to utilize the 49th mystical mob fu technique, hyperspeed clairvoyance, also known as cheating. As he resolved himself to this dishonorable path, something wet plopped onto his textbook. A mackerel? A voice came from the window. Zeta, one of the 7 shadows, noted that her lord seemed to be thinking about a difficult matter. She appeared, a sack full of fish over her shoulder, and offered that fish can be good as food for thought. Cid greeted her. It had been a while. Zeta, puffing out her chest, proudly announced that she had grown taller. She then presented her catch with the earnestness of a cat bringing its owner a prize. She'd caught a lot of mackerel today.
She wanted to share them, all 24 of them, shoving the splishing, splashing fish into his face. Cid placated her, saying he'd grill them later. Thinking to himself what a carefree cat she was, he watched as she immediately found his used clothes and began rubbing against them. She then hopped onto his bed, wagging her tail. He dryly requested she stop marking his bed. With an apology, she vanished, hiding in the tight, narrow space underneath it. He sighed, asking her to please stop that as well. Her head poked out from under the bed. She asked if his troubled expression was about the recent incident, reporting that she had been observing the cult for several days. Cid, seizing the chance to role-play, sat coolly at his desk. He confirmed he knew the rough location of the sealed right arm, but not the missing students. He mused to himself that Zeta always did enjoy playing spy, being especially good at infiltrating thieves' hideouts in dark, narrow spaces. He confidently predicted a fifth victim would turn up soon. For now, they needed to ascertain the cult's purpose for doing this. He threw out some cool-sounding phrases for good measure. Something about eternal darkness, or perhaps an awakening from eternity. Zeta, from her spot under the bed, looked up in awe. "Lord Shadow, you already know everything?" She swore that if it was his wish, she would discover their true purpose without fail, before disappearing into the shadows. In another room, Cid's older sister, Claire, was seething. That damn Cid! She wouldn't forgive him this time. He promised he would spend winter break at home with her. How many times would he break their promises? No matter. When spring break comes, she would clap a sturdy collar on him and drag him home. Then he'd never run away again. As she swung the collar with a thwoosh, a sharp sting shot through her. She cried out, clutching her right hand. It was aching again. Why was it suddenly acting up? She thought the pain had faded. Alone in her room, she spoke to the presence within her hand. "Aurora, if you're here, answer me. I've done my own research. Documents about the demon Diabolos displayed the same magic circle as the one on her hand. What was the connection between them? What must she do?" Only silence answered. As she thought, Aurora hadn't responded since then. A faint voice whispered a single word. Claire jolted. "Run!" That voice! Aurora? She turned, shouting. Was she being told to run? The very fabric of her reality began to crack like glass. The entire room shattered. A masked assailant lunged at her. With a sound like a hammer hitting meat, Claire intercepted the attack, her expression one of pure annoyance. The man dropped. "What is it now?" He cracked his neck, seemingly recovering. But then he exploded into dust. Claire looked around, bewildered. The room was back to normal, but what was going on? She opened the door and stepped into an empty, silent hallway. Looking out the window, she saw the academy buildings, but there were no signs of life. It was as if everyone had disappeared. Was she somewhere else altogether? Aurora's voice echoed beside her. "That's why I told you to run, but it's too late now." Claire spun around, her expression shocked. "I knew it! Aurora, you're here! Explain this to me. And why, she demanded, have you engraved this magic circle on my hand and not appeared since then? Aurora's spectral form appeared behind her. She apologized, explaining she couldn't say more just yet, because Claire's existence was being protected by him. Claire balked. She wasn't planning on letting anyone protect her. Him? Who? But you have. All this time, Aurora replied wistfully. I envy you, you know, before and even now. It's all right, Aurora soothed. He wants you to be safe. I will show you the way.
After all, she faded out. I owe him a big favor. In a nearly empty lecture hall, the remaining students sat listlessly. The door opened, and a radiant Alexia Midgar entered. She politely asked if Cid Kagenou was here, as she would like to talk with him. Cid's friends, ecstatic at the prospect of getting rid of him, eagerly pointed him out by the window, where he was looking at a pretty butterfly. Please, by all means, take him. Alexia smiled sweetly, approached Cid from behind, and swiftly put him in a headlock. Why, hello, Lady Alexia, Cid managed to say. What do you want with busy old me? Seeing as you have nothing better to do, she replied, come with me. Cid immediately assumed the worst. If it's something to do with the squishy, chopped-up bodies of murder victims, he'd pass. Alexia yelled, asking why that was the first thing he thought of. She grabbed his collar. This is a serious matter, she insisted. Alexia's tone softened slightly. She was sure he'd been worried and had debated telling him, but she urged him to listen and try to stay calm. Your older sister has been missing since yesterday. All they found in her room was a sturdy collar. It was very likely she'd been kidnapped. Cid's mob character facade shattered into genuine shock. What? My sister? Not again!